Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of an Inconvenient sequel, Truth Power? My name is Scott Mantz, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please give it up for the directors of an Inconvenient sequel, Jon Shenk and Bonni Cohen. Now, it isn't every day I get to say this, so please rise. Please rise. Give it up for former Vice President Gore. So I guess really the first question is, before we get into an Inconvenient sequel, let's talk about an Inconvenient Truth. And right after that film came out in 2006, when you started to notice that changes were taking place because of that film.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were generous in their comments after that movie, saying it had a big impact on them. And we took 100% of the profits from that movie and started the Climate Reality Project, which did all the trainings, that some of which you saw just now. By the way, 100% of the profits for this movie go into training more climate activists all over. Along with the other things, it helped to bring about a lot of new momentum to the climate movement, and some of the some of those things contributed to the process that produced the Paris Agreement and all of that. And yet the Great Recession came along and really dampened people's economic outlook, and then the carbon polluters started the climate denial movement full force, and they put out a lot of false doubts and false information and so forth. And our greatest hope for this movie, and I'm so privileged to be here with Bonni Cohen and Jon Shenk, and I'm pretty biased, but I think they did a pretty awesome job. Our greatest hope is that this movie will add even more momentum. We're close to getting to the tipping point. So let me just take this opportunity to ask all of you if you agree, if you feel this movie is really worthwhile and worth seeing. You can actually do more than most by getting on social media and talking to your friends. And these days, with all the stuff in the news and the Twitter, all this stuff, what really makes a difference for people is when they hear from people they know, and they hear from their friends and people on their social networks. So if you could help us get the word out about this, the website is inconvenientsequel.com, but you could really help us a great deal to build the momentum and help solve the climate crisis by recommending this movie to your friends. So thank you if you're willing to do that.
And go an extra step and do something that you couldn't really say 11 years ago when the first movie came out, which is retweet. Say that 11 years ago. Retweet. Okay, so Jon and Bonni, when you first had your plan to not just do the sequel, but to do it in the way that we just saw, which is significantly different than the first movie, did you just call up, hey, Al, how did that conversation?
Well, this project, in a way, for us, did start with a phone call. We were contacted by Participant Media, Jeff Skoll's company that did an Inconvenient Truth. More recently did Spotlight. I think 100 other films. Just amazing films. Jeff is a big believer, as many of you probably know, in the power of story to change people's hearts and minds, especially when it comes to the important social issues of our day. And Inconvenient Truth was an early success for that company. Bonni and I heard they were thinking about doing a sequel to An Inconvenient Truth. We jumped at the chance to fly down to Nashville to meet Al, where we were patiently sat through a 10-hour version of the slideshow. And
I'll be giving that later.
But what we noticed was, what you just saw, the amazing evidence that's just completely devastating emotionally about the evidence of the climate crisis, and of course the solutions, which picked us back up and gave us a great deal of hope. But more than that, what we really noticed was Al's energy. We realized this is a guy who never stopped. 2006 was only really the beginning for him in so many ways, with the climate trainings and just using all his resources, contacts in the political world, business world, to try to move the needle on solving the climate crisis. And so we pitched the idea of doing a behind-the-scenes kind of movie where we would be, in an observational manner, follow him around the world as he did his work. That year happened to be the year of the Paris Climate Summit, so we knew that was going to be a stop on the tour. And the result is what you saw tonight.
Well, that stop on the tour, you had a rude awakening, and I was curious why. Was there some debate about whether or not you were going to keep that in the film, or to stay on topic, with regards to the terrorist attack in France?
Oh, well, when the terrorist attack occurred, you'll recall from the movie, that was 2 weeks before the Paris conference. Every year I do this 24-hour-long global broadcast to try to build awareness of the climate crisis, get more people involved in the solutions. And we were all there, and 4 hours into it, as you saw, the horrible terrorist attack began. And actually, that is one of many scenes where I was so shocked when I saw the first rough cut that Bonni and John showed me of their work in progress, because I had no idea they had gotten that on film. You see in the movie what I and the others there are reacting to in real time. It was really an incredible experience. And I was really surprised that they got that on film. They followed me for 2 years, and they patiently explained at the very beginning, we may be in your face some, we're going to be around a lot. And I agreed to that. Luckily, we became great friends pretty quickly. But human nature being what it is, hard to explain this to somebody who hasn't gone through it, but you actually do kind of lose your awareness that they're there all the time. It's not humanly possible to remember it. And especially when there are emotional scenes like that one, or talking to those survivors in the Philippines and plenty of other places, I really lost my awareness that they were there. And they got so much incredible footage. It reminds me of the quote from the great football coach Darryl Royal, who once said, "The harder I work, the luckier I get." They got this great stuff because they got everything. They left about 1,000 times as much footage on the cutting room floor as what went into the movie, so that they really worked incredibly hard. But the reason why, I'll let them answer this, but they sort of present in the movie the connection between that terrorist attack and the Paris Agreement that followed, that started 2 weeks later and followed 3 weeks later. Because actually, kind of hard to explain in words, but it's really true that all 150 leaders who spoke there, every single one of them, there were 200 countries, 150 heads of state, every single one of them started with condolences to the French people, and then solidarity with the French people, and then this is an opportunity to really, get a meaningful agreement that honors the spirit of humanity and so forth. And in a way, they were kind of connected. I don't usually quote from my faith tradition, but I will this time. There's a scene in there's a passage in Scripture, in the story of Joseph and the coat of many colors, when his jealous brothers throw him in the pit, and the scripture reads, man intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. And I kind of think in some ways that's what happened there. But why did you guys keep that in?
Well, I was just going to say about the terrorist attacks, when you're filming in a verite style, which translates into the French as truth. So the original cinema verite was, just a following action, following scenes as they happen in front of the camera. And that's what we really tried to do. And some, we had some narrative ideas for where we wanted this film to go, but when we landed in Paris 2 weeks before the climate conference and the terrorist attacks happened, it sort of set off a chain of unexpected events, one of which, of course, was the horror of the terrorist attacks and how that was going to affect the climate conference. And there were moments where, everyone thought that it might get canceled, but, God bless the French for keeping things going and having the bravery to go forward with it. So, that happened and then transitioned into the climate conference where we were going with Al. We didn't know what kind of a role he was going to play because he wasn't there as part of the delegation, and, it was anybody's guess exactly how it was going to play out. So as filmmakers, we were there. John and I talked a lot about, we stayed the 2 weeks at the climate conference, what's going to happen. And then when Christiana Figueres, who is running the climate conference, who also happens to be one of the first climate trainees that Al trained back in 2007, and here she was running the climate conference in Paris, we thought, maybe the connections are going to start to get interesting. We followed that thread, and then she enlists Al to help with India, and then we were kind of off and running. But a lot of this film, we would tag along with Al, and it was a little bit of a fishing mission to see what would happen, and the risks ended in great rewards a lot of the time, not everything, but we started to see how the narrative thread could work, and for us, as that terrorist attack, as Al says in the film, that terrorist attack set off a chain of events at the climate conference for the world leaders that were there, and they became inevitably linked together in the film.
One of the things about trying to control climate change is how we all have to do our part. Like over the years, I always looked at whether it was being eco-friendly or anything like that, being like, oh, it's such a drastic lifestyle change, and it's probably too expensive to do that, but it is very affordable, as we saw in this movie in Texas. I mean, you tear up a city like that, it's like an inspiration for everybody.
Yeah, it's one of the amazing things that's happened in the last decade is that the cost of solar electricity and wind electricity has come down so fast that in many places it's now cheaper than electricity from burning coal. Same thing's true now with batteries and electric cars. A new electric car just went on sale yesterday for $35,000, which is half of what the Teslas sell for now. And the progress is really amazing. And solar panels, here in California, this is not an advertisement for the company, but I just want people to know because it's a good example of what you're saying. They'll come out, here's the deal they offer you. They say, we'll put solar panels all over your roof, and the next day your electricity bills will go down 20% guaranteed. How much will it cost? Nothing. We'll do it for free. Because the savings are so much, they can make a profit and lower your bills. Now, that's an example of how the world has changed in the last decade. And with the new batteries, the combination is so incredible, it's going to completely upend the fossil fuel industry. The sooner the better.
I was going to say, the movie premiered at Sundance in January, and you said you've been working on the film for 2 years. So between November and December, you had to lock in print fast that reflected the election. What was it like to be under the gun like that, to reflect what did happen, by the way?
Well, we were with Al, I think a day or a couple days after the election. yeah, it's getting ready for Sundance. If there's any filmmakers in the house, it's a pretty stressful situation. You know, they don't like to mess around. They want to have their prints, you know, to test them early January. Of course, bowled over by being chosen to be in the festival, which is just an amazing honor. So it's an emotional time. We figured that we kind of cut ourselves a little slack. We figured we needed to get you know, the film out the door and get it premiered. And by the way, it premiered at Sundance the night before and then the day of inauguration. So we were sitting in the green room at Sundance waiting for our Q&A afterwards, watching the inauguration on Elle's iPhone, which was one of the more surreal moments, I think, in all of our lives. Anyways, we took a tack that we would wait and see, because, you know, Trump, of course, he had all this rhetoric during the campaign, but there's often campaigns with really dirty rhetoric, and you never know where that's going to end up, you know, once the rubber hits the road. And then, of course, when the rubber did hit the road in January, when he was inaugurated, we saw that he was appointing these climate deniers to the cabinet, and that ultimately he did announce that he was going to pull the U.S. out of the Paris Agreement. And at that point, we really felt like we had to update the film. We figured there's probably not a lot of films coming out this summer that had the climax of the Paris Climate Summit. So we felt a little responsibility to include that news. But sorry, this is going on a while, but the thing that really amazed us was the blowback against Trump's announcement. The mayors, governors of states, you know, CEOs of companies that stood up in the wake of that and said, hey, wait a minute, we want to stay in the Paris Agreement, and we want to keep our commitments to what happened in Paris. We know how important it is for our cities, states, companies, the world.
And by the way, your governor, Jerry Brown, is a real hero.
To kind of follow up on that right there, the point just made is that the rest of the world, like, there's almost like a defiance.
Yeah.
In the way that people have been able to distinguish between the United States and our president.
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we'll show you. And since then, India has announced that within only 13 years, 100% of their new cars and trucks are going to have to be electric vehicles. They're closing hundreds of coal-burning plants. I mean, it's amazing the changes. They're speeding up. We all learned in school the law of physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Sometimes that works out in politics. I think that the reaction to Trump, I mean, you know, somebody may support him, and I'm not trying to make a political point here, but it's just a fact that in response to some of the stuff he's been up to there, the reaction out in the country has led to the biggest new upsurge of enthusiasm and activism for the climate movement, for good health care, for a lot of things. And so, you know, once again, maybe God intended it for good.
I thought of you a couple weeks ago, and not because I was going to interview you tonight. I was online and I saw that a piece, an iceberg the size of Delaware, broke away from Antarctica. And I thought of you, and I thought of how the climate change has produced these like superstorms, like Stormageddon, how this extreme weather, but yet we're not at the tipping point. All is not lost. I think that's important for people to know, is that all is not lost.
Yeah, it's really important. I mean, people come out of this movie feeling hopeful. Sometimes they're kind of surprised that they do feel hopeful, but also with an increased sense of urgency. And that event you referred to is one of many that are clear indications that this thing is picking up steam. And, you know, Mother Nature's joined the debate. And it turns out she's more persuasive than any of the activists are. And a lot of people, like Dale Ross in Georgetown, Texas, who don't necessarily want to use the phrase global warming, they're beginning to say, hey, you know, the weather's getting pretty weird, and maybe we do need to kind of take a different approach here, and especially if our bills can go down. And then they notice the air is cleaner, and it's kind of like a side benefit that we save the future of humanity.
So in 2006 we had an Inconvenient Truth. 2017 we had an Inconvenient sequel, Truth and Power. So don't take this the wrong way. But how do we avoid a trilogy? You know what I mean? How do we avoid so you don't have to make a third film?
Go to inconvenientsequel.com and encourage people to go to this movie, get the word of mouth out there. We got to build this movement. As the movie says, this is kind of in the tradition of a lot of social movements that seem like they're impossible, and then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, if somebody had told me that in the year 2017, gay marriage would be legal in all 50 states and more than 2/3 of the American people would accept, honor, and celebrate gay marriage, I would have said, well, I hope so, but what are you smoking? But as Nelson Mandela once said during the anti-apartheid movement, he said, it's always impossible until it's done. Well, we're really close. We're really close now. And I hope that 10 years from now, we'll be able to look back and say, nope, don't need any more sequels. We've crossed the tipping point. We're gonna solve this.
Now, in your conversations with Trump, President Trump, did you how did those conversations go with regards to climate change? I would love to be a fly on the wall. And do you sort of slip him a Blu-ray copy of Inconvenience of the Truth? Hey,
We're dying to know if he's going to watch the movie.
Well, I'm a little bit old school on this. I spent 8 years keeping confidential the conversations I had with President Clinton, and I just kind of think it's right for me to protect the privacy of my conversations with President Trump. I will just say that I had reason to believe that there was a good chance he would stay in the Paris Agreement. I thought he would come to his senses, but I was wrong.
Well, that is where we come in.